sample is the most important piece of the Bengals offense next year.
Go Joe Burrow. He deserves to be MVP. I wish he was the Browns quarterback. Kind of mean that.
If you're looking for the most reactionary, silly, and unserious show on the internet, then you're home. Live from Hamilton, Ohio, it's Off the Bench by Chatterbox Sports on 1410 ESPN Radio.
All right. Welcome on in, everybody. Whoa. Off the Bench. Presented by United Dairy Farmers, ESPN 1410 Wing AM in Dayton. We are waiting for our host.
Our fearless leader.
We are waiting for our host, so we're just going to go ahead and start it without him right now, and maybe he will join at a later time during this show, but right now we're starting without him. So, gentlemen, how are we doing? By the way, I'm going to be in a good mood today. I know last week I was in a bad mood in the midweek point. Bearcats won last night. Ooh. The Bearcats won a game. Casey texted me last night right around the 12, 15-minute mark of the second half, and he's like, congrats, man, we did it.
I didn't say that.
Congrats, man, we did it.
Say that.
And I said, Casey, good job, yeah. And then I want to say not 3 minutes pass, and Baylor goes on like a 10-0 run.
Yeah.
And it was a 2-point game pretty much for the last 10 minutes of the game. But nonetheless, the Bearcats get the big win. So all the way back. So I'm doing great. Casey, how are you?
I'm doing great. What I actually said was go Cats, and then you said praise the Lord. Spoke too soon. Dead. And then I said, I'll just stop watching because every time I start watching, they start losing. So I turned it off. He said, this really makes me mad that they won't make the tournament. I said, there's still a chance. Nah, not with all this wiggle room that they have to work with. So I think what actually happened was I turned off the game as soon as I turned it on.
That's good. Casey's texted me, I want to say like 5 times this year and say, Bearcats looking good. And every single time they've lost. So I'm happy that finally the tides have turned.
We decided before the show that they're in a position to be in a position to be in the position.
That's correct.
Okay. That's not a bad place to be.
That's correct.
Just 2 positions away.
Just 2 positions away. And really, it's 1 position. It's like 1.5.
Right.
Because if you beat Houston, I'm not saying it, but it does seem like the Bearcats would be in the tournament field at that point. But obviously, you got to beat one of the best teams in college basketball. It seems unlikely. But outside of that, not too else is new. We haven't done too much since yesterday, so nothing else.
That's the thing about a daily show.
That is the thing about a daily show.
Not always a ton happens in between, except for our guy Casey, who's Mr. Baseball.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Casey did a baseball game yesterday.
Yeah, the home opener for Miami Redhawks. Unfortunately, they did not get over the hump versus Wright State. They lost 11-10. And there was some drama there at the end. Umpire got in the base path lines.
Some controversy.
They sent a guy off a bunt from third home. Yeah, it was just a tough one. Tough day for Miami Redhawks, but it looks like it's going to be a fun season. Looks like they're going to be just crushing the ball a lot, just like they were last year. Still working on some of the pitchers there, but overall it was a fun time. It was a long one. Around the top of the third, we were an hour and a half into the game, and it was 7-7.
Oh boy!
So you might have dodged a bullet. I mean, like, obviously, still a very, very long game, but top of the third, 7-7, an hour and a half in, you could have been in trouble.
Could have been. I could have still been doing the game.
I might have had to do it.
I could still have been at Miami at this point, but they turned things around. They started to pick it up. I mean, it was the first home opener. I'm sure there was some first game jitters and whatever. But.
Yeah, I feel it. On the show today, we are going to talk about the Bearcats. We're also going to talk about a little press conference that happened yesterday with our guy Duke Tobin and whether or not what he said was truthful.
Cap or no cap?
Cap or no cap. The cap. That was tweeted out by Tee Higgins.
The cap heard round the world.
After the Duke Tobin press conference. So that's not ideal if you're a Bengals fan. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that and some more. But right now we're going to do some.
Are we also going to talk about FC? They have a game today.
Who do they play?
Well, you might.
They play FC Motuga? I don't even know how to pronounce it. Motaagua. Motuga?
Okay.
They look like they're like some sort of bird.
Oh, the Birds.
Yeah.
They're playing the Birds. So what time is that one, Casey?
6:30.
See you there. All All right, headlines for yesterday. Boom.
Score
Yes,
updates, breaking news, local and national headlines. Whatever's going on in the world of sports, Elliot has you covered. Off the Bench brings you Elliot's headlines.
Didn't want to. You changed your mind.
So
You changed
I
his
changed my
mind.
mind.
College basketball from last night. As I mentioned, the Bearcats, they hang on to beat Baylor 69-67, avenging their 68-48 loss earlier on to the Bears. Jizzle James led all scorers again with 18 points. Dylan Mitchell, 13 points, 9 boards. I thought I was going to be very upset at Dylan Mitchell, but Aziz got the rebound of the missed free throw at the very, very end of the game. So we win the game. Josh Reed had 11 points, 4 boards, and a steal. Josh Reed has come out of nowhere, and he's been absolutely incredible for this team. Last night, a massive steal. In fact, he was plus 11 when he was on the court.
Wow.
Just for reference, Dan Skilling's minus 7 when he was on the court. So plus 11 for Josh Reed, minus 7 for Dan Skillings while those two are on the court. Up next, as I mentioned, it's Saturday at 4:30 against Houston on the road. Good luck to us. Fifth-ranked Tennessee, they slid past LSU, 65-59. You have sixth-ranked Alabama. They dropped 100 points again.
They did.
Winning 111-73 over 24th-ranked Mississippi State. I texted Jacob last night. Alabama is either going to win it all or they're going to lose in the first round.
Yeah, I think that might be a little bit extreme because I do think they're going to end up being a 1 seed. So I don't think they're going to lose in the first round. But I think the sentiment is 100% true. No one in the country, including some NBA teams, can beat Alabama when the shots are going in. Now, when the shots aren't going in, it gets ugly sometimes. So if they're playing defense the way they're playing right now and are able to make their shots, I mean, they made 22 threes last night.
That's insane.
They were 22 of 45 from 3, shot 85% from the line and 52% from the field as a whole. Chris Youngblood was plus 31, since we're doing plus minuses, against 24th ranked Mississippi State. There was a point with about 15 minutes left in the second half where the Alabama backcourt of Mark Sears and Chris Youngblood had 36 points and Mississippi State had 35.
That's insane,
Yeah,
man.
it's pretty cool.
11th ranked Wisconsin, they destroyed Washington 88-62. 14th ranked Missouri, they won by 30 against South Carolina. Virginia Tech, they lost at home to 19th ranked Louisville and Pat Kelsey, my guy Pat Kelsey. 9th ranked Iowa State fell on the road to unranked Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State, one of the 3 remaining games the Bearcats have on the schedule. That'll be the season finale.
First ranked win for Oklahoma State this year.
Really?
Yeah.
How about that? Second-ranked Duke, they sent Miami to the Shadow Realm. 97-60 the final. Poor Miami. You lose your head coach at the beginning of the year, and it is an absolute disaster. 97-60, they lose to Duke. Georgia, how about this one? Georgia shocked third-ranked Florida, 88-83. For a bubble team, that's a pretty damn big win there.
Yeah, they were up 26 points at one point in the first half.
Really?
Florida took a 3-point lead late in the second half. It was much closer than it should have been, but once you get up that much as a bubble team against the second-ranked team in the country, you cannot afford to lose it. So good for Georgia holding on.
21st ranked Marquette, they got a 30-point win over Providence. 30-point win over Providence. Switching over to the NBA, the Cavaliers, they destroyed the Magic 122-82. Ty Jerome led Cavs scorers with 20 points off the bench. 20 points off the bench. Strus and Mobley each had 17 in the win. The Grizzlies, they fend off the Suns in overtime, winning 151-148. 151-148.
It's a lot of points.
It's a lot of points. John Morant, 29 points. Booker had 28 points. And the late game last night, the Lakers and the Mavericks in Los Angeles. Luka got his revenge, a triple-double against the Mavericks. The Lakers win 107-99, 19 points, 15 boards, 12 assists for Luka, while LeBron added a 27-point double-double of his own. That's got to
Luka
feel good.
joins LeBron and Russell Westbrook as the only 3 players in NBA history with a triple-double against every team.
Is that right?
Yeah, his first game against the Mavericks gets his triple-double.
No way. I think it was, plus 200 for him to get that
So
yesterday?
it was like, yes, plus 200, somewhere around there. All the lines were crazy high. He hit every single over except for points.
That's insane. Absolutely insane, but good for Luka. I'm happy
Yeah,
for Luka. Mark
absolutely.
Cuban was in attendance
There was a
last
great
night.
picture of Luka on the court, and you could see over his shoulder Nico Harrison.
Yeah.
The focus was great. That one's going to be talked about in Dallas for a long time.
NHL news, you had the Capitals losing 3-1, but Ovechkin getting another goal. He is
Great
now
chase.
12 away from passing Wayne Gretzky. 12 away from passing Wayne Gretzky. He's going to probably get it this season, right?
It's going to be close. I would assume so, but it is going to be close. Obviously, the hat tricks and the multi-goal games help speed that up. But
Yeah.
whenever he does get it, whether it's at the end of this year or the beginning of next year, that's going to be one of the coolest sports moments we've seen in a while, because that's a record that no one thought was ever going to be touchable. And, here he is about to break it.
Yeah. NFL news, Clay Kubiak promoted to offensive coordinator by the 49ers. Do you like that move?
I don't know where they keep finding all these Kubiaks, but they work pretty well. The other Kubiak brother was promoted in New Orleans last year. Obviously, it didn't end great, but for the first, 2 or 3 weeks of the season,
right.
they thought they were the greatest thing since sliced bread. So I think this will work pretty well with the weapons they have in San Francisco. I think, long lineages of family coaches usually tend to work out.
Former Pro Bowl linebacker Harold Landry III has been given permission to seek a trade from the Tennessee Titans. Bengal?
Well, I don't think so.
Bengal?
$15 million on this year, and I think if you're going to go get someone with that much money, then you're looking at someone a little better if you're in our shoes. We talked about Joey Bosa a few weeks ago. I think they're a relatively similar price point with the contract that Landry has, and if Bosa's cut and hits the free open market. So I certainly wouldn't tab him as a Bengal, but I think with him being granted this permission, he's been obviously there for a long time, this makes me think that they might go Abdul Carter at number 1, because they have no cap concerns. So why move on from Harold Landry unless you think you have a guy coming up the pipeline that you want to take those edge 1 reps and get those mainstay reps in practice and everything like that. So this makes me think they might be going Abdul Carter.
And finally, we'll get to it after this, but obviously a big press conference from Duke Tobin yesterday. Some of the quotes from it. Tobin said Chase changed his mind last year in contract talks. Quote, "It's just business, no hard feelings. I'm optimistic we'll be able to do it." Chase probably talks to you about that stuff more than me. He said he's going to probably be the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL, which is no shock to any of us. And he also said that they want to get the Tee Higgins deal done and the Trey Hendrickson deal done. So I'm hoping that what he said was true. But as you know, and as we all know, Tee Higgins did post the picture of the hat last night, which means cap. And for those of you who are too old for that reference, I'm also probably too old for that reference. It means that Duke Tobin might have been exaggerating on the truth there. So those are your headlines.
Another little piece of Bengals news outside of the Duke Tobin conversation. Sure. Tony Pauline, sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, Pauline, of Sports Keepda, an analyst there at the Combine today, interviewed Trey Hendrickson yesterday, and he reported this morning that Trey Hendrickson is not expected to play the Bengals on this last year of his contract. Really? It will either be an extension or a trade, is his belief and the belief of the rest of the NFL. I know that's something we've talked about a lot. Maybe the Bengals push this Hendrickson extension down the line because he is under contract this year. Doesn't look like that's going to be the case. Either they meet the asking price or move on from him. Obviously, would like to see that from a few more places than a guy I've never heard from. But obviously, everyone at the Combine talking to the same people. This is a great time to try to garner news from every corner of the internet. So, that's the first time we've heard of that. So I thought it was at least interesting.
There we go. Those are your headlines. So what we're going to do now, we're going to take a break. We're going to see if Justin Kinner's somewhere behind the scenes ready to go. If not, we're going to come back out, and we're going to talk about the Tee Higgins drama and the Duke Tobin press conference. ESPN 1410 Wing AM Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. We'll be right back.
Damn it. I thought it was just Elliot and Jacob and Casey today. What? Damn it. Damn vibes. Vibes are bad now. We welcome you back. Off the bench, Justin Kiddo, Casey McCollister, Elliot We're in Jacob Tissett. We had corporate just out of nowhere just pop in the building. That always makes people feel good. So, scurrying around, trying to pretend that I'm not, doing another show over here, just regular everyday radio stuff. So, but thank you guys for, kicking off the show and all that stuff. So obviously headlines in the books. I knew obviously the combine was this week. I never paid attention to when Duke Tobin was going to be actually officially addressing the media, and he hit the ground running. And there's so many takeaways from yesterday. I know you guys just touched on it to close out that segment. I don't know. Some people view it. There's so many different ways that people are perceiving his approach to everything. Some people liked his confidence in the way he was speaking. Some people liked the aggressiveness in which he was speaking, the definitive nature in which he was speaking. But then, of course, if there wasn't that tweet last night or that X post last night from Tee Higgins, it kind of makes you view everything a little bit differently. There's so many takeaways. I don't even know where to start. I'll just kind of throw it back to you guys. Yesterday was a good thing, right? I guess if we could just quickly summarize, was yesterday a success as far as the messaging from the front office and the Bengals?
First and foremost, I think it's the first time Duke Tobin said anything.
Yeah.
I mean, for years, he goes up to the podium and just says nonsense for 15 minutes, and we learn nothing. So whether you believe it or not, I really appreciate Duke Tobin firmly taking a stance, talking about his guys, talking about his offseason plan, where they plan to go, the money they plan to spend. Even last year at the Combine, when Tee Higgins' tag was the top of the docket in terms of questions to be asked, he was very wishy-washy about a future extension. This year, obviously, the cap tweet late last night changed a lot of the feelings around that conversation, but he was gung-ho about re-signing Tee, keeping him in the offense, and talking about how great that fit is. So even outside of what was actually coming out of his mouth in terms of the quotes and agreeing with Joe Burrow and all that stuff's great, but the fact that he actually stood up there and talked about a plan and said things, that means a lot to me, because we only hear from Duke Tobin once or twice a year. So the fact that he actually used this time to get a message across, it leads me to believe that either Joe Burrow's media tour worked, or Duke Tobin's going on his own right now to force the people that actually make these decisions, Troy and Katie Blackburn, to fork over the money he needs.
Yeah, I think that if anything, you should feel. I mean, up until the Tee Higgins tweet last night, I felt very good about it.
It was a wonderful day.
It was a wonderful day up until the cap, but I don't know if we can now realistically expect Tee Higgins to be a Bengal. I based on the tweet, I mean, I don't know what else I'm supposed to read into it. Clearly, that was about that. We have to obviously analyze an athlete's emoji that he used, and this is part of the new sport, the new era sports talk. That's something we got to talk about. But up until then, Jacob's right. Everything that he said gave Bengals fans confidence, and it at least showed that there was a plan in place, and the plan was in line with the fans' plan.
Right.
And we were all going in the same direction together. Again, there was something at the end of the day that ruined all that. But up until then, there was like a couple-hour window there where I felt very good.
The quote that jumped off the page to me to start it all off, it wasn't about Tee Higgins or Jamar Chase or Trey Hendrickson or anything like that. It was Duke Tobin saying, everything our quarterback has said so far, I agree with. I want deals done, but I don't just want to pay more money for the same team we had last year. We have other needs, and I want to go after those needs as well. Some people initially jumped off the page there and said, oh, no, this means Tee and Jamar and Trey Hendrickson aren't coming back. I don't think that's the case. I think that quote to me reads, we want to retain our core and we want to add. These aren't mutually exclusive. I'm not just going to pay more for the same roster we have now. If I'm going to pay more for the roster, I'm going to pay more for the roster and get better across the board. So I didn't have the same knee-jerk reaction to that as I saw a lot of other people having, but I think that the awareness about the disappointment he had about last season, the need to add to the roster outside of these stars. He knows where this team's at right now, and he knows what it takes to get over the hump. We also have to remember that it's not Duke Tobin signing checks. If the Blackburns and Mike Brown don't want to fork over the money, it doesn't matter what Duke Tobin wants to get done. It doesn't matter what kind of negotiations he's willing to have. It can still come across as disrespectful, which he said they never want to try to do, but if your owners aren't willing to fork over the money that the other 31 teams are, then it certainly can come across that way. So I think it's tough to listen to Duke Tobin and take a full glimpse of what's going on in the Bengals front office just because it is so family-oriented. They don't give him a lot of control, and I would love to hear from the Blackburns, but this is as close as we get, and I think it was as good as you can really ask for.
Yeah, like, we had a similar conversation, I think, last week when it came to Nick Kroll and Brad Meter, the general manager and president of baseball operations for the Reds, where a lot of people were beating up on Nick Kroll and Brad Meter and saying, man, they didn't go get that big power bat outfielder that they promised at the beginning of the offseason, that, you get a Terry Francona and you didn't really make any big splashes in the offseason. And the bottom line is, I'm like, well, they can only operate within the restrictions that are placed upon them by ownership. Like, I think if you sat, Nick Kroll down, Nick Kroll would love to go get the Shohei Ohtanis and the Vlad Guerrero Juniors and every big name that you could think of. Like, it's not like, these guys don't want to go get, these deals done and go get these players, but money on retaining guys from last year, I want to add and fix some of the deficiencies from last year. I think what we've made the mistake of, me included, has been that they're mutually exclusive. Well, if you spend money to retain these guys, you're not going to fix other problems on the team, or you don't bring these guys back and you fix issues on the around the team as well. I think what he's saying is, hey, we want to bring back Tee Higgins. We want to take care of Jamar Chase, make him the highest paid non-quarterback in the league. We want to bring Trey Hendrickson back and put all our money on all the other deficiencies and holes that this team has as well. Again, he's saying all the right things, we think. We're going to get into the Tee Higgins thing in a moment. But overall, you feel good about at least him putting it out there. Or is he, like you said, almost drawing a line saying, hey, I want to do this. Ownership, are you going to let me? That's going to be the big question mark, because it sounded good. It sounded like this is a team that's about to be aggressive. You wonder the motive. Like, you don't say that unless you feel like you can, right?
Right.
Like,
that's exactly my takeaway. I don't know why he would change how he sounds at the podium from the last few years when the same issues have been brought up if he didn't have a newfound confidence. There's no reason to go out there and say, we're going to extend these guys. We want to extend these guys. And he went on a 10-minute tirade about how great Tee Higgins fits in the offense, not talking about numbers or cap or anything like that. I don't think that happens unless there's a somewhat of a level of confidence within Duke Tobin, within this front office, that they're going to be able to keep these guys around. Otherwise, he just would have went up there and said the same exact thing that he said all the time. There's only so many pieces of the pie. You can't split it up. Can't pay all these guys the top of their position. We've heard the talking points of a lack of confidence before. Those didn't come across yesterday. So I know the Tee Higgins tweet has sent a lot of people into a spiral, but I'm still taking a general positive from yesterday's press conference with Duke Tobin.
Off the bench, Justin Kinner, Elliot Ruring, Jacob Tissett with you here, Casey McAllister. Casey, your takeaway too. Obviously, Duke Tobin had a lot to say yesterday, and it wasn't just regurgitated stuff from combine, media availabilities past. There was a lot to people noticed a ton of just how different he was at the podium. A lot more confident, a lot more forward. You feel confident from what you heard yesterday in regards to obviously getting Jamar taken care of, getting T and Hendrickson, and overall just fixing this roster.
My main takeaway from it was that he basically doubled up. He anteed up, and now all the cards are pretty much laid out on the table. If they don't get it done, it's the whole house is coming down, is basically how I feel. I mean, when you reiterate that you feel exactly the same way that Joe Burrow does, and then reinforce it by saying that Jamar is going to be the highest paid non-receiver in the league, or non-quarterback in the league, and then you're also saying that over the last couple of years that you've been trying to retain Tee Higgins and that you want to give him a long-term extension and that you want to get Trey Hendrickson done and that you want to add to the team. It's all out there now. And if they don't follow through with these things, it's going to be hell to pay. Hell to pay from just the fans in general, from us, from the media. I mean, it will be an utter disaster because the clips are out there. And we can just pull it right there and say, well, this is what you said. This is what you said in February 25th. What happened? Right. And I think we all know that in the past, he's kind of slipped in there like, these negotiations are a two-way deal, right? They can only get over the line if both sides agree. He didn't really do that this time. He kind of was just like, yeah, we're going to get these things done. And I think that is a step in the right direction, I would say, for most fans. He didn't leave that back door open. But now you got to follow through.
Yeah, for sure.
Actions speak louder than words. And I think that's the main takeaway that we have from this.
Yeah, the other thing about Tobin actually taking a stance is if they don't do what he's saying, the question that we've been asking for a while here might start to leave Cincinnati, and it's, what do you do? You're not the GM. You're the director of player personnel. And if you can't direct player personnel, then what is your job that you've had for 25 years? If you're saying you want to extend this core and you've been the GM of the Bengals for 25 years and then you don't have the ability to extend your stars, what is your job? You're just there to lick Mike Brown's shoes? Like, if you have a plan as the GM of the team and you're not allowed to execute it, then get a new GM. So I don't know what the main difference is here, why he's taking a stance if he doesn't have the utmost confidence that they can get it done, because it only makes him look worse. Another thing he said that's a big difference from the last couple years is he put a big emphasis on getting deals done early. He said with Chase being the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL and how much they would end up having to pay Tee Higgins and Trey Hendrickson, he said he wants those things in place to build out a football team. We've talked about over the last few years how the Bengals have pushed these contracts down the line, and it's made their job so much harder year in and year out. Even just a difference of a month or two in terms of these contracts could end up saving them millions and millions of dollars, especially with getting all the other pieces, knowing what you have to work with within the cap, within the cash to build out the rest of the team. If he sticks to his word and gets these contracts done and gets them done early, this team's going to look very, very different next year and be in a much better place.
And I know you can't use hindsight. I get that, but this is like if you got the Jamar, and he said that Jamar Chase changed his mind at some point last year. Whether or not that's true, I'll believe him as of this second. But if you get that deal done, it's so much easier to sign Tee Higgins right now. If you get Tee Higgins' deal done several years ago, it's so much easier to get Jamar's and Trey back. Like, it's just you wait until the last second, and it's going to kill you. That's what's happening right now with the Cincinnati Bengals. So I'm hoping that what Casey said's right, because if your actions aren't going to match what you're saying, then you're worthless. It's worthless. Everything about this organization just doesn't matter, and the house will fall down. It will. Because you can't just sit up there and promise things and not capitalize when you have the talent that the Bengals have. The Bengals, whether or not the national media or the national fans in the NFL want to say it, they have one of the best chances to win a Super Bowl every year. They do, because of Joe Burrow. That's a fact. And when you have that expectation and you don't capitalize and you still run your organization like you did in 1995, people are going to have issues with it. Now, I know they've taken steps. I understand that the organization is not the same as it was 25 years ago. I get all that. But I'm just saying, as of right now, you have a big opportunity to show not just the fans, not just the media, but you have an opportunity to show the people that are playing for you, the players in the locker room, that you're serious about winning, and that you can pay whoever, whenever, for the betterment of the team. It helps free agents. It's going to help everybody. Make Cincinnati a more desirable place.
All right, Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Rearing, and Jacob Tissett with you here. We'll step away for a few. When we come back, it was we used to, when Kevin and I hosted the show together, we did a segment called Cap or No Cap. It's basically just buy or sell, because cap means it's a lie, and no cap means, well, I guess it's the truth. I don't know. I'm not cool. I'm not hip. I don't know. Bottom line is last night, Tee Higgins, he just, maybe he's shopping for a hat. I don't know. Maybe he wants a new hat. Maybe part of the negotiations is I'll sign the extension, but I need a cool Bengals hat to go with it. I don't really know, but he tweeted out a subliminal tweet last night that just had a cap on there. And it's kind of convenient that came late at night after a full day of all these great things that Duke Tobin said. So did Tee Higgins call Duke Tobin a liar? We're going to discuss when we come back. We have the soundbite. We have the audio. Don't go anywhere. More Off the Bench when we return. It was the cap heard around the world, or at least seen around the world. I'm not really sure. But Tee Higgins was active on X last night. Not really. It was just one tweet. It was just not even a word. It was just an emoji, just a cap. But a lot of people believe it had something to do with some of the things that were said earlier in the day. Of course, at the NFL Combine, media availability for Duke Tobin and the Cincinnati Bengals, of course. Chatterbox was shared on their social media accounts on their across on X. Take a look. Here's just a brief snippet of a lot of the things that Duke Tobin had to say about Tee Higgins, about the offseason negotiations, and everything about the Bengals' future moving forward. Take a look.
Tee Higgins. Seems like 3 or 4 or 5 years I've been talking about Tee. I think you guys all know what I feel about Tee Higgins. I think Tee Higgins is a fantastic football player, and I want him on my football team. Whenever I'm in charge of a football team, I want Tee Higgins. And so I'm going to do what I can to get Tee Higgins. Our preference with Tee Higgins is to do a long-term agreement. Always has been. It continues to be, and we'll work hard to get that done. You know, we are fortunate. We've got a lot of really good football players, fantastic football players, and we're fortunate to be in a position to where we can fit them all in. We've managed our cap well. We've got low dead money. We want a high payroll and low dead money so the people that are in Cincinnati playing for us can get all the money. That's what we want. And we're in a position to re-sign these guys, and it's a good position to be in. It really is. And we're going to attack it, and hopefully, we don't want to just re-sign these guys and pay more for the same football team we had last year. We want to add to it as well. So we want to re-sign these guys, reward them for their ability level, and add to the football team. So it's a tall task. We think we're up to it, and Katie's got us in position to attack it well. Franchise tag, yeah, I don't have breaking news on that. I'm aware that I have a franchise tag, yes, but our preference is a long-term deal, and that's what our focus is right now. Yeah. I'm optimistic until there's reason not to be, and I've always been optimistic with T, and I want a long-term deal. You know, he fits with us, and we fit with him. It's a great match, and so there's no reason not to work hard to continue the relationship for sure.
So here's my takeaway with him. A lot of good things are about to happen for you Bengals fans, or he is the most full of crap individual I think I've ever heard speak in my entire life, because he makes you feel very confident. I like everything he said, but the problem is, if you're saying it so confidently and saying it so eloquently and you feel so confident about it, why is your quarterback having to go around on every media show possible screaming for help? Why are the, you say there was another clip that wasn't in there where he said, yeah, it's important to get deals done early. Well, what are you telling us? We're telling you. Everyone in the, Bengals fans, the most passionate diehard fans and the critics, everyone can agree that you're doing that incorrectly. Don't tell us, you do it. I like everything he said. I agree with everything he said. And it sounds like their goal is to not just do the tag, but to get the extension. Like, if everything plays out, good for Duke Tobin. But, man, if he's just – I feel like that could have just been a long clip of him just saying the right things to say the right things. And I'm not stirring the pot. I'm not being a hater. I'm not doing any of that, so everyone relax. But I think you have to agree, right? Like, he's either full of crap and he's just saying everything he can because he knew he was going to get a lot of backlash if he said anything but that, or things are trending in the right direction and he's confident it's going to get done. I would like to think it's going to get done, because I don't think you go out there and say that unless it is. But at the same time, he's saying everything just so, as a matter of fact, as if we're crazy for doubting everything that's happening, as if like we're crazy for all the stuff that's been said by T and some of the players, that Joe Burrow's having to go on every show possible, almost subtly calling out the front office about getting stuff done. So again, I make sure wrote some of this down. He said, hey, we're in a good spot. We have low dead money. We have, a lot of cap space. We're in a position to re-sign everybody. And look, he said all the right things. Will they do it? That's going to be the big thing. But like, he either sold us a bill of goods right there, or he's confident that it's going to get done. But yeah, like, he just said things so as a matter of fact. And I'm like, don't tell us that. Like, we know that. We've been questioning how come you haven't executed those plans, if that's the case, because it's not like now's the time to get it done. Technically, last year was the time to get some of these things done, as far as that's concerned.
Yeah, he knows how to say the right things. Clearly, I think he was prepared. He knew what was going to be asked, and he knew the answers that he was going to give. He knew all the buzzwords. He knew how to make the fan base and the national media, talk positively about him and the Bengals and the future. He knew all of that. So congrats to them. They were well prepared for this interview. My whole thing is that if you're not going to do anything about what you say, then why would I ever believe anything?
Yeah.
You know, if you're going to talk about we have money, we're going to have a high payroll, why don't you? You know what I mean? Like, if you're going to get deals done early, why don't you? If you want to sign T to a multi-year deal, why haven't you? We're looking at, you know, a back-to-back franchise tag for one of the best wide receivers in the National Football League. If your whole goal is to get a multi-year deal done, let's do it. Let's go ahead and do it, because I don't understand what the pushback is. If Tee Higgins is asking for $35 million, then we'll have a different discussion. But those numbers haven't been reported. As of right now, I think that you can get Tee Higgins for a number that makes sense. Jamar is going to be the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL. You know that. But you have the money for it. You have the money to make that happen. You have the money to bring back Tee Higgins. You have the money to bring back Trey Hendrickson. So if what you're just saying there is that, you know, we're gonna feel really confident about getting it done, I lose my confidence, because I think you're just saying things like you just said, Kenner. I think he knew what all the buzzwords were, and he wanted to get everybody excited, and he prepared himself for that, and that's what he did. He succeeded. Unless what he said was a lie, and Tee Higgins is calling him out on it. But to be fair, that cap could have been about anything. Could have been about anything. It's just strange timing that it happens a few hours after the press conference.
I just don't know what Duke Tobin possibly has to gain from lying about these contracts. What does he possibly gain from that? He looks like the worst GM in the world, that he just does whatever his owners tell him to do. He has no control. He can't keep good players here. Something that's a no-brainer for the other 31 teams is something that he thinks is a no-brainer but doesn't have the ability to get done. I mean, he made himself look so bad if that was a lie yesterday, when he could have just kicked the can down the road as he has for the last 3 years. That's the only reason I'm confident, is because I don't see any reason for him to change his tune unless there's a change that happened. I just don't see what he possibly gains from it. And the fact that he's saying everything that makes sense, everything that we've said they need to do, he's going through. And I did think one piece that was interesting there, and he said it a couple other times during his interview, about how important the lack of dead money the Bengals are. So outside of these big three, if they do get them done with Jamar Chase, Trey Hendrickson, and Tee Higgins, do not expect the Bengals to change their salary structure. They're not going to be giving more guarantees into the next few years and risking that more dead money. So don't think that the days of, you know, in-season trades or major free agency signings are going to be coming right around the corner. That's not going to happen. Our best chance, as we've known for a while, and as we've said time and time again on this show, our only chance to get blue chip free agents is Trey Hendrickson and Tee Higgins.
So with that, you know, I did that whole little spiel about everything that he said, but forgot to, you know, obviously end it with, and you guys alluded to it, at the end of the day, Tee Higgins, or end of the night, he just tweeted out cap. And cap means lie, as the cool kids say, of course. And who knows what that could have been referring to, but I think we kind of can connect the dots on this. And I will say, I'm here to tell, and Elliot, I know you'll disagree, and Jake, I think you'll disagree. If Tee Higgins is, like, let's say Trey Hendrickson is brought back and they spend a lot of money fixing a lot of holes on the defense, I'm here to tell you the offseason is not a failure if Tee Higgins is not back next season. I don't think it's a failure if he's not back next season. I think, Jake, I've heard you say in the past, it's going to be kind of one of those like, he's not coming back, but it's a pause because you want to see what they do. Okay, we're not bringing him back because we're using this money to allocate over here.
And so what do you get for him?
Yeah,
that's a big question. Yeah. So if you're trading Tee Higgins for a third-round pick, that's a F-. Now, if you can flip him for a top 40, that's a very different conversation.
So if he feels like it, so if T is saying, cap, we're nowhere close, or he's getting the indication from his agent that he's going to be traded, it's going to be, you know, a sign and trade type of situation or whatever with the cap or with the with the tag. I mean, okay, I still don't think that is a red flag. I would not be like Tee Higgins being concerned last night to me is not a red flag. I know that people don't want to hear that because you want T in Cincinnati. I just don't think it's a red flag. At the end of the day, I don't think it's the worst business decision in the world if the Bengals say, T, we love you. We know Joe loves you. We appreciate you being a part of our Super Bowl run. Like, that was all great. But we have a plan, big picture, for how we want to lay out this roster. And it just does not include having the highest paid non-quarterback on our roster and paying you top dollar at the same position. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying I would understand it. But I think you guys just want to feel like your front office has a plan. And I think that's where you lost faith in the front office last year, where it felt like there was no plan. And I think that's where they need to regain that trust with your fan base.
Well, honestly, last offseason, it felt like there was a plan. Their plan was to extend Jamar Chase early. And as soon as there was a little bit of pushback to whatever number they had, they just threw in the towel and gave up, said, we'll try it next season. And that's not a winning formula. You have to be persistent in the front office. And that's what you're saying right there. It's not the worst thing in the world that Tee Higgins is a little uncomfortable with the negotiations right now. They're negotiations. He's going to probably be put under the franchise tag. I doubt they get something done by, next Wednesday? It's March 4th. I think that's next Wednesday that they have to have an extension done unless they franchise tag him. I think they're going to franchise tag him. And, of course, he's not going to be happy about that. And I'm sure there's going to be some tweets from him and from his mom and from everyone else who's an insider in the middle of February talking about how he's definitely going to get traded and be paid, $35 million from the Patriots or whatever else. But as long as he is on the Bengals roster or at least not on someone else's, there's a chance he's back in Cincinnati. And after yesterday, I'm more confident than I was before yesterday, regardless of the tweet.
I'm okay if they trade Tee Higgins. I don't need to have Tee Higgins back. I want Tee Higgins back because I think he's going to be the best option. If you make a trade for him, he's going to be the better player in that trade, no matter who that trade is or what that trade is, if it's for draft picks. So I would like him back because I know the Bengals can get it done. Now, if you trade him and you have a set plan and you can get him for a second-round pick, maybe a second and a third, if you can get a good deal, then absolutely. It's a rare thing to have such elite talent that the Bengals do in terms of wide receiving and quarterback. It's a very rare thing. You can't think of too many examples where the quarterback and two wide receivers are all probably top 10, top 5, top 3 in their positions. I'm trying to think, in Tampa Bay when Tom Brady went there, it was Tom, Mike Evans, and Gronk. Those are elite options. But that's a rare thing. In Philadelphia, you have, maybe 4 top players at their position. A.J. Brown, you have Devontae, you have Saquon and Jalen Hurts, and you've got everybody. So, there are teams out there that can do it, and it's going to work out, in my opinion, if you bring Tee Higgins back. But it's not. You don't have to do it. There's been a lot of Super Bowl champions, including the Kansas City Chiefs, who lose premier talent and still are able to succeed. You can lose Tee Higgins and succeed if you have a plan beyond Tee Higgins. And that's my whole thing. I don't know what their plan is. I don't know where the direction of the franchise is. I'm hoping they're going in the right direction. But let's say you trade T. You need to get another wide receiver.
Yeah.
You have to get on it. You need a tight end as of this very second. We don't have Mike Gesicki back as of right now. So what, you're going to bring Mike Gesicki back? You're going to draft a tight end with your first overall pick. There's just a lot of questions regarding the Cincinnati Bengals. And to your point, Kenner, I do feel like I've lost a lot of the faith in the front office because I don't know what they're going to do. I have no idea. What he said at the press conference feels great to me. But if he's not going to act on it, then it's nothing. It meant nothing. In fact, it's going to make me feel significantly worse.
We saw an extra name thrown in with those big 3 that we've talked about a lot this offseason when Joe Burrow initially went on his free agency tour, threw Mike Gesicki in there as well. You just touched on that we need a tight end if we don't bring him back. Tobin had a couple comments on that yesterday as well. He said, we've been pretty good at bringing tight ends in. Mike fit with us, but tight ends tend to fit with us. It was a great match, and I'd love to have him back, but at the end of the day, we'll see. It seems like in Duke Tobin's eyes, at least if you're going to believe everything he said yesterday, he is removing Mike Gesicki from that top group.
Yeah.
When he's talking about the top free agents and the priorities of the offseason, he's talking about T, Jamar, Trey Hendrickson, and then Mike Gesicki falls down to an obvious tier 2, at least just going through the quotes that he said yesterday. So I think that was important to note as well, just because he said he backed everything Joe Burrow said, but it seemed like at least that point he had a slight disagreement.
Yeah, I feel like in the negotiation process, it's like, all right, with this new job, I want the raise, and I want you to help pay for movers and company car. All right, we'll give you the raise, we'll pay for the move, but you're not getting the company car. I feel like Gesicki's the company car. I feel like, you know what I mean? I think at the very end, Burrow, the company was like, well, yeah, he's going to want these guys. And, he wants Gesicki too. He wants the company car. You're not getting the company car, but we'll help your move. We'll help with the expenses, this, that, and the other. Either way, you just want to feel like they have a plan. There was a lot of confidence in his message yesterday. I think that's the biggest takeaway. Obviously, the wrinkle at the end is the subliminal message from, of course, Tee Higgins. But I think we can all agree it's just kind of a sit back, wait and see approach. I think so. Joe Burrow, for instance, if T's not brought back, I think he's going to be pissed up front But if the changes that they make lead to them winning 11, 12 games next year, winning the division, making the playoffs, and competing for a Super Bowl, I think Joe Burrow has to sit back and say, okay, all right, well, your moves at least led us in the right direction. But what you can't do is not do the moves your star quarterback wants, and then you continue just running in place. That's going to lead to chaos down the road. I do want to ask you guys quick on I think I sent it in the chat yesterday. Let me bring it up because I think it was, Charlie Goldsmith. You referenced it earlier about the Jamar Chase thing. There's still some weird stuff with that from last year. So Charlie Smith said, or on the tweet, just kind of quoting Duke Tobin, saying Duke Tobin said Chase changed his mind last year in contract talks. It's just business. Like, was that not a shot, but like, what the hell happened last year? Because we keep going back and forth. Jamar Chase was a little the bad guy at first, and then people dialed back because, whoa, wait a minute, he's only doing this because they approached him. Well, he changed his mind. I don't know what's happening here, but it felt like, hey, Jamar Chase changed his mind. Duke Tobin could have taken accountability there and said, yes, we did approach him probably, prematurely in regards to not having the right deal in place, and that's what led to the distraction heading into camp. Instead, it was, well, yeah, we approached him, but he changed his mind. Like, as if it was, on him as far as that's concerned. I know at the end of the day, there's nothing there because they're going to get the deal done. I'm very confident in that. He reiterated that over and over. But that's still, rewinding back to camp last year, it's still weird what exactly went on that led to that noise before camp started.
Yeah, I mean, I think when he said he changes his mind, I'm sure he's right. I think, like, they offered, hey, Jamar, you want a deal? And he's like, yeah. What about this? What about this number? Oh, I'm good. It's like if Casey asked me for lunch, hey, Elliot, you want to go to lunch today? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And we walk out the door. He's like, you okay with Long John Silver's? And I'm going to be like, probably not. So Long John Silver's isn't a sponsor of the show, is it, Kenner, of the station?
Not anymore.
Okay. Well, that's what it was. And like, I'm sure he changed his mind. I don't think it's a shot. I think he's accurate with what he said. I think he probably changed his mind once he saw an offer that he didn't like. That's okay.
I'm laughing at that. I just saw a random Facebook meme that said there's a secret society of people that regularly give their business to Long John Silver's to keep that place open. Because have you ever once sat back and said, man, I'm craving some Long John Silver's today? Like, I don't know any of my friends that do, but that place stays open.
I have no idea. It's my biggest mystery on this planet, how Long John Silver's is still active.
The 2-for-1 Jack in the Box Long John Silver's is usually a good establishment, though.
Yeah.
You usually get that root beer stand one every once in a while, like something. But all right, good stuff. Well, Duke Tobin also yesterday, away from the drama with everything and the obviously the ongoing storylines with Tee Higgins, Jamar Chase, and Trey Hendrickson, sounds like some positive stuff could be coming in the direction for Bengals fans when it comes to that. But as Duke Tobin alluded to, there's more issues that this team needs to address. And not really, but one way to address some of those issues is with the draft coming up. Jacob highlighted, or is going to highlight some of the takeaways from some of the comments from Duke Tobin yesterday with his media availability. A lot of interesting takeaways regarding what kind of player they're looking for, potentially with their first round pick sitting at number 17, and some of the offseason directions that they want to go in. So we'll get to that more in depth when we come back, more off the bench when we return. And we are back off the bench. Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Rearing, and Jacob Tissett with you here on a Wednesday. A lot of Tee Higgins, Jamar Chase, Trey Hendrickson talk, Duke Tobin addressing the media yesterday. But those are like the big storylines, the big question marks heading in. But we also have the draft coming up. That's the whole reason that they're there at the Combine is, of course, to evaluate some of college football's biggest talent that's going to be, obviously all the teams going after with the draft gets here coming up in April. So with the draft coming up, there's just a lot of things that this team's going to be looking at and how to fix some holes and patch some holes on the defensive side of the ball, whether it be through free agency or the draft. Elliot, you came across a clip, of course, that is more centered around how they're going to focus on improving the defense.
Well, it's not really. I mean, it's Duke Tobin discusses the defense here, but it's also about the Bengals in general not coming up in big moments. So it's not specifically centered around the defense, but it's going to be the Cincinnati Bengals, moving forward, having to execute, and it starts with the defense. So this is Duke Tobin.
We already have. We know our defense wasn't good enough. It couldn't get stops when we needed it, couldn't protect leads, it didn't get off the field, and then, in critical moments when the game was on the line, it didn't rise to the occasion. 4th and 16 against Kansas City, that's one play, we win one game, now we're in the playoffs. But that's countless games throughout the year, whether it's our offense converting a first down to run the clock out to win the game, whether it's our special teams converting a field goal to win the game, but multiple times, a fumble going into the end zone, all the things that happened. It was a crazy year. We're a championship level team that didn't get an opportunity, and that irritates us. It irritates all of us. It irritates our fans, and we're not happy about it. And we're going to attack the offseason to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Yeah, and I think it starts with the defense, right? I mean, flat out, it was bad. It was a bad year. Yeah. It's the reason the Bengals aren't in the playoffs. He mentioned all the little plays there. The fumble out of the back of the end zone, the fumble in the end zone week 1 against the Patriots, the pass interference against the Chiefs. All these things, the missed field goals by Evan McPherson against the Ravens, all these little things were symptoms of the disease. The disease, unfortunately, this year for the Bengals was just a defense that wasn't professional. It wasn't a good enough defense. It wasn't a standard NFL defense. And that was the borderline issue. So I think going forward, they're going to take a look at everything, and it's going to start there, and they're going to try to address it. They're going to address it. They've got Al Golden. They've fired Lou Anarumo. The defense is going to look different this year. So when the Bengals have the little plays that don't go our way, it's not season-ending. Because that's what it was. Every little play ended the Bengals' season last year, and I don't think that's supposed to go, or that's not how it's supposed to go, right? Every team messes up. Every team loses games. It's very rare to have a perfect season. And even when you have a perfect season, you still don't win it all. Shout out to the Patriots. But it's like, I think if you can adjust the defense just to a point where I can look at them and be like, okay, they can get like back-to-back stops once in a game. If they can do that once. There were multiple games where the defense legitimately didn't get a stop. The Washington Commanders were stopped 0 times when they beat the Bengals this year. 0. You know how hard that is? Not to get one single stop if you don't count the kneel out to end the half. That's brutal. So you start there, and everything else gets better based off of that. And I think that's my takeaway from what he just said.
Those organizational changes didn't stop with Duke Tobin. Zach Taylor was asked about that as well, and he said that the slow starts are an inexcusable problem, something that has obviously happened year in and year out under him, except for the year we made it to the Super Bowl where they won in week 1. And he said that they're going to look at the entire offseason plan, the preseason plan, the spring plan, every single aspect of the offseason, overhaul it and change how they approach that. So I thought that was good as well, because even over the last few years when the slow starts have been a problem, since they haven't really affected us, I think we haven't seen the change that is necessary to change that around. But since it kept us out of the playoffs this year, we're going to see change to the offseason plan. At least that's what Zach Taylor's saying in February. We'll see how much that matters when we get to week 1, week 2, week 3. But hopefully that's going to allow the Bengals to start the season a little faster and not have a week 1 loss to the Patriots, keep you out of the playoffs.
They legitimately have to.
Yeah.
I'm sick and tired of the 1-3 starts, the 0-2 start. You got to start hot. I know Jacob and I think Reed, maybe Casey even said, before this year, like, we can lose a couple games early. Like, that's not going to kill our year.
No,
because
almost didn't, too.
Because we know the Cincinnati Bengals get hot at the end. We know that. This year was the reason why you have to start hot. You cannot lose to the New England Patriots, who don't have a team, in week 1 at home. It's inexcusable. You can't defend it. And honestly, I think it should have been enough to warrant some more change than just our DC this year. So next year, I don't know why they can't handle any distraction whatsoever. Other teams are able to do it. The Kansas City Chiefs and Chris Jones were having arguments and contract disputes, and what happens? They go out and they win their games. The Bengals don't win games when there's any sort of adversity in the first few weeks of the season. It just hasn't happened. Last year, you didn't know what was going to go on with Jamar Chase, and I think it really, really hurt them. I think it was bad for the morale of the team. You know, a couple years ago, you have Joe Burrow injury, and that's a way more fair argument to not start out hot. But at the end of the day, good teams find ways to win, and the Bengals haven't done that under Zach Taylor in those first few weeks. They do it later on, maybe better than any team in the NFL. They do it later on. But they got to start doing it early. You have to take the pressure off the bench. You have to take the pressure off everybody. Just start out hot one time.
I've leaned towards putting less blame on Zach Taylor for those starts, even though his head will roll if they start out slow again. I know the Joe Burrow injury, and this is not blaming Joe Burrow, it's Joe Burrow's fault. Joe Burrow has come into every season limited on any participation in camp, and I know he participated in preseason last year, but that wrist still wasn't right. And when that wrist got healthy, that's when everything took off. I think it's a much simpler problem. I do think it's one thing that is being overblown a bit, because Joe Burrow starts out slow every year, as the team does, but I think it's a lot because of his ability, coming into a season, trying to get acclimated, coming off of limitations in camp, or, even still nursing a little bit of an injury. Obviously, that wrist didn't feel good until a couple weeks into the season, and that's really when the offense opened up. So I think as long as he's healthy heading into this upcoming season, I think you're not going to see a slow start. The only thing that could also lead to another slow start will be the things we're talking about now with Jamar Chase and Tee Higgins and Trey Hendrickson. We could talk about them getting this done, and we're assuming this is going to be done within a month. What if not? What if Jamar Chase is going to be the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL? I believe that's going to happen. So do you guys. But what if there's just some X's and O's that need to be ironed out in these details, and it bleeds deep into July, and then camp's there, and Jamar's like, I'm not stepping foot on that field until this is done, right? It's very important that Duke Tobin, we could blame Zach Taylor if there's a slow start coming up, but I'm going to blame Duke Tobin and company, because if T is sitting out, if Trey Hendrickson is sitting out, if Jamar Chase is close to getting a deal done but opts to sit out because they haven't got it done yet, that to me is on Duke Tobin in the front office, because he just made it point blank clear. All these things that they are very confident that they can get done, low dead cap, plenty of money to spend. They want to sign all these guys to extensions. If they don't get it done, it's just simply on them. And if those distractions lead to a slow start, I have a hard time putting that on Zach Taylor. That has to be on the front office at that point. But we know how that game rolls. It'll be on Zach Taylor one way or another.
Yeah, you can't fire Mike Brown, so we'll fire Zach Taylor.
That's correct. Some other news just came out. And this speaks to maybe.
Before we move off the combine,
okay, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
Duke Tobin had another quote at the meeting here. We talked about the combine, what they're looking for, what they're approaching in the draft, the focus at pick 17, and we've seen as their meetings start to roll in today, at least this part of what he said yesterday is true and is being confirmed by the meetings they're having so far. Duke Tobin emphasized that get off time and having a pass rush plan is what they're most focused and looking for when they look at the edge rushers. He included that second moves might even be more important than first moves, and how you attack after your first one does not work. If they follow that process, some big names that we've talked about so far would be knocked off their board. Mykel Williams, Shamar Stewart really don't fit those two molds, but some smaller guys might, which goes against the size profile that the Bengals have attacked over the last few drafts. That's how you end up with guys like Myles Murphy and Sam Hubbard, the bigger body edge rushers that the Bengals think are more NFL ready right away, instead of the more gadget small guys that the Bengals have avoided, like the Nolan Smith that we've seen have a lot of success elsewhere. One guy that does really fit this mold for the Bengals, going off of what Duke Tobin said they're looking for most, is the Texas A&M edge, Nick Scorton. A lot of people don't necessarily love him because he had a down year in production last year in College Station, but 2 years ago he transferred from Purdue, and today during a combine interview he said the way that they're asked to play the two different schools couldn't be more different. Texas A&M is more read and react and no pure rush, where Purdue was pure rush. He had a great season of production in 2023 at Purdue, so maybe a more exciting player than initially thought of, but he fits that Bengals mold pretty well based off what Duke Tobin's saying there. And outside of just him, the Bengals have met with Shamar Stewart, a fellow Texas A&M Aggie, Michael Williams from Georgia, James Pierce Jr. from Tennessee, Mike Green from Marshall, and Colin Oliver from Oklahoma State. All the top edge rushers being met with by the Bengals right now. They have not met with Jack Sawyer yet. Thought that was important to note because we talked about him a little bit as well going through this draft season, but focusing on the edge position, at least at the top of the draft at 17. So at least early in the draft process, seems like that's the way they're leaning. They're going to attack defense at 17, which again leads me to believe if they're focusing on defense at 17, Tee Higgins is going to be back in Cincinnati.
Cap.
Fair enough. Just wait 4 hours and tweet it.
Let me ask you guys this. Is it still, and this is more for Jacob and Casey, is it still a complete mystery what the Bengals are going to draft with that pick in the first round? Because I think that you have an idea, but then it's like if Duke Tobin is quote-unquote cap about Tee Higgins, about what he said, I still think you need a wide receiver as a first priority. And I still think you might need a tight end with your first priority, depending on what you do with Mike Gesicki. And obviously we don't have those answers yet. We'll know more about that obviously come April. It's only February right now. So, but are you confident with what direction they're going for that first pick in the first round, or for the first round pick?
I mean, these combine meetings showed a lot last year. They met with a lot of the tackles, and they met with a lot of the defensive linemen. They ended up going tackle. Right now, all we've seen is defense.
Right.
I have not seen one offensive player met yet.
They haven't had interviews yet. So
okay. Yeah, that's true as well. But as of right now, they have, I think I saw 45 of those interviews, and you have to interview not just the first round, but you know, the whole draft. So they've already used at least 6 to 8 on the D line in the first round alone.
And so 7 of those 8 are first-round D-line prospects.
Right.
Like, they're not going deep into the draft yet even. So that's another reason why I feel like they're really honed in there for 17, at least as of now.
Yeah. And the other thing, too, that you could point to that I know that they haven't said, but it's kind of self-explanatory, you want to get younger on defense. The last year's defense was really old, so I'm assuming that they're looking at the draft to answer those questions.
And financially, you have to. Charlie wrote about it today, Goldsmith on Charlie's chalkboard, that if the Bengals are going to pay Jamar and Joe and T what we're asking them to pay them, you don't have an option but to get young on defense. We talk about what the Eagles have done, and every time we bring it up, I make sure to say it because it's important, and I feel like it gets glossed over. 8 of their 11 starters on defense are on rookie contracts. You can't pay everyone unless you hit in the draft. Yeah. Those things are one and one. They go together. You have to marry the draft, free agency, and contracts in order to be a legitimate Super Bowl contender. So the Bengals have to change how they draft if they're going to be a legitimate contender with these big contracts. And I think my biggest thing for the draft, and what I say all the time, is you can't go in with the position. That is the worst way you can handle the draft, is say we are going to draft an edge rusher at 17. And then in the first 16 picks, 5 edge rushers go, and you're stuck with the 6th best guy. You have to let the board fall, take the best player at a position you can at least tell yourself, I need a little bit, and make the team better. I'm all for drafting the best guy, especially defensively this season when we're trying to get young really across the board. And we don't have anyone outside of, I guess I'd say Logan Wilson that I believe in super long-term on this defense. So I would be fine drafting anyone at any position. We've seen over the last couple of weeks, Will Johnson, the Michigan corner, tumbling down boards because of the lack of confidence in his ability to test at both Pro Day and the Combine. So a guy that was a consensus top 5 pick going into the year, if we can get a glorified cornerback 1 at 17, we haven't talked about DB much at all outside of free agency, but if the board falls that way, maybe you jump on that. You said tight end, Tyler Warren. We're not talking about tight end, but if he falls out of the top 10, maybe you jump on him. So you got to be willing to take whatever the best player is. That's the only way you can improve your team.
They have a pick in every round, right? Like they don't move on from draft picks.
They do not have a 7th round pick because they traded it for Khalil Herbert.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Such a good move.
But they got a 7th. They got a 7th round value production out of him. To be fair.
2 fumbles.
One didn't count for him.
One did not count.
One didn't count for him though.
Everyone contributes in their own way. Let's just put it that way. All right. Report card time. I'm surprised. Do they always come out at this time?
They usually a little bit later, but usually right around the Combine.
So the report card has come out. The Athletic just released, how the Bengals graded out. when it comes to, of course, how they treat families, their locker room, training staff, weight room, team travel, head coach, all that fun stuff. So the grades are in. I always got nervous growing up when the report cards came in. I don't know how we're feeling right now, Bengals fans, but we'll get to that when we come back. More Off the Bench when we return. The Athletic just released their report cards for all NFL teams. The Bengals end up 24th out of 32 on the NFL Players Association. So it's not the Athletic. It's the article from the Athletic highlighting it. I'm sorry. But the Bengals end up 24th out of 32 on the NFL Players Association overall report card. But they were hammered for quite a few items on there. My thing is, this is a cruel final ranking. I mean, there's a lot of A's and B's on this, and they're still 34th out of 32. I mean, are there that? Yeah. I don't know. I saw a lot of A's and B's on this. I know you guys are going to pop it up on the screen, but for them to end up 24th out of 32 teams with all those A's and B's, that's a strict grading curve right there. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, none of the schools I went to incorporated an F-, but that might really pull down your rankings. It said that they only gave out 4 F- across the entire league. The Bengals got one of them, so I think that probably pulls them down, maybe nullifies 1 or 2 of those A's. But yeah, you hear 24th out of 32, you think that's really bad, but pretty significant improvement from last year, at least across the board. Not nearly as many A's or B's last year, only 1 A- on the report card last year outside of head coach. This year, you're inching up there with a couple more. So baby steps for the Bengals. They're improving across the board. Still don't care about their players' families, though.
So they are one of the Bengals. They are one of 4 teams that offer neither a family room nor daycare for the players' families on game day. They are one of 4. They are the only team that closes their cafeteria on the players' day off, even though many of their players come to the facility on off days for extra preparation and recovery. They are the only team that closes their cafeteria on a player's day off. The club did begin to provide 3 meals a day on Wednesdays only this year, nice. But they are only one of 2 teams in the league that don't provide 3 meals a day for the players. They are one of 2 teams that don't provide 3 meals a day for the players. The locker room, approximately 50% of the showers don't work. 50% of the showers for the Cincinnati Bengals do not work. They either don't provide warm water or there isn't enough water pressure. They face consistent plumbing issues that limit the amount of functioning toilets the players can use. And it is noted that the Bengals did take a positive step by upgrading an area that was highlighted as a problem last year. But the survey results reflect that there is still significant work required amongst multiple categories to improve their overall standard.
Only 41% of players on the team report that they get an individualized nutrition plan.
Yikes.
These are professional athletes. That ranks 32nd out of the 32 teams. And the players as a whole feel that their dietitian for the team is not sufficiently accessible. 32nd out of 32 teams. So even outside of the brick and mortar, the Bengals are falling short when it comes to helping out their players over the course of an NFL season. Not pretty. This report card is always a tough time to be a Bengals fan.
Very tough time to be a Bengals fan. They want a room, one of their big sticking points for next year, they want a room to get their loved ones out of the cold during game day.
Doesn't seem like a crazy ask.
That doesn't seem like the most, I already mentioned the daycare, but that's another part of it too. somewhere they said somewhere better than a tent outside for families to gather after the game.
This is a good one. The players report their sense that Brown is somewhat committed to building a competitive team in Cincinnati, ranking 29th out of 32 teams.
Okay. All right.
Somewhat committed.
They rank 30th in food taste. They rank 31st in food freshness.
They don't even give you food, and the food
No.
they give you tastes bad?
Yeah, 30th in food taste, 31st in food freshness. I mean, this is very, very funny. Only 19%. You already said that. Sorry.
Best locker room in football.
Correct.
That's good.
That's correct. Did you say the dietitian one?
I did.
Okay.
I did.
Sorry. So I'm still covering through some of these. But the training room's good.
Training room and locker room.
Training room's good. Training room, training staff, weight room, strength coaches, very, very good.
It seems like the personnel that they employ is good.
Yeah.
They just don't employ enough.
Okay, I like that. What about
every position that's filled is good.
Yeah.
All the F minuses that they don't have this.
Yeah, you're right. What about this one? Head coach. What do you think the grade was for head coach, Kinner, if you don't remember it?
I have it in front of me, but I was
All right.
surprised by this as well. I'm not surprised by it. I was actually happy to see it because I think it's going to surprise some people for those who didn't catch it.
Zach Taylor gets an A from the players. He gets an A from the players. That ranks 10th in the NFL. I know us fans are hard and critical on Zach Taylor. The players clearly love him.
Yep.
98% of players feel that Zach Taylor is efficient with their time, 3rd overall. The players feel that Zach Taylor is very willing to listen to the locker room, 10th overall.
Up one spot from last year.
There we go.
He was 10th last year. He's
There
9th
we go.
this year.
There we go.
Some will say, well, as a fan, I don't really care about the daycares and all that stuff, but it's like if you're trying to lure free agents to come play for you, I mean, at this point, Tyreek Hill would never be a Cincinnati Bengal. I mean, if there's no daycare for his 25 kids, who is going to watch all them dang kids if he comes to play for the Cincinnati Bengals? But I don't care about the daycare. I mean, I guess this is, they're serving the players and that stuff matters in free agency, stuff like that. But no, they did improve on a lot of this. They announced a lot of the obviously the upgrade to the locker room and everything else that's being done. They show what they displayed that last year, right? So that was something that they addressed and targeted. I think at the end of the day, though, players want the treatment of families to be better, food dining area to be better. But Joe Burrow wants Tee Higgins. He wants talent. He wants wide receivers. I think that's what we could all agree with. That was my joke about the Reds when we went there a couple weeks ago from the media day. They're telling us all about these new sushi bars that they're putting in and this restaurant they're putting in the outfield. I don't care. Put a good outfield out there. I want a good right fielder. Maybe Austin Hayes is the dude, but I want a good right fielder. That's what I want. I don't need a sushi bar. I don't need a new bourbon bar. But I think that they're saying, hey, we're not going to give you talent, so we're going to give you someplace to drink it away, I guess. I have no clue, but I think everyone just wants talent more than anything else.
Shout out to you, Kenner. Only 4 F minuses across the report cards. We take up 2 of them. So we had one for ours, and then the Browns locker room, an F minus. So the main place.
What about your guy Stefanski getting a B minus? That ranks
C.
Oh, is it a C?
It's a
He got
C.
a C. Where did he come in rank wise?
30th.
30th. Only 70% of players feel that Coach Kevin Stefanski is efficient with their time.
Well, I'm telling you guys right now, I'm not joking about this. I already know how this is going to unfold. Shedeur is going to be drafted at number 2. Kevin Stefanski, when they win, let's say anywhere between 7 to 9 games, they're going to miss the playoffs. Stefanski will be fired after this upcoming season, and I promise you, Deion Sanders will be the Browns' next head coach if Shedeur is there. Deion has come out and said he's only going to take an NFL coaching job if it's to coach one of his sons. And we all know the Browns aren't going to win next season coming up now, unless they make some major moves and get a Matthew Stafford or something crazy and they pin together some pieces on defense. But to me, my timeline that I envision for the Browns is, Shedeur will be drafted at 2. Things will go okay, but again, it won't be the result that the ownership's wanting out of for the Browns with Stefanski. So they'll move on from Stefanski. There was talks of them potentially moving on from him after this past season, and then I think Deion will come in to save the day, whatever save the day means for the Cleveland Browns. There you go. There's something there.
I don't know if there's
I was with you until you saved the day.
Yeah, I think
I think your timeline is correct. I don't think the day ever gets saved.
Yeah. Like
You
it's
don't
like
want
With all
the
due.
Dave Cave.
With all due.
You don't
I
want the Dave
I have the
Cave.
helmet today, so I'm
Yeah.
not scared.
The Browns playing Gotham, except Batman doesn't exist
There
in
we go.
this universe.
I won't throw this one though. I take care
Oh
of
no,
it.
that's too
I don't want
that's
to-
too
I don't
pretty.
want- yeah, but
There was a
either
lot of
way.
Browns news out of the combine as well yesterday. It was reported this morning that they met with Mason Graham at
Okay.
2. Schefter said yesterday that the thing he's most confident in around draft season is that the Browns will take a quarterback at 2, but obviously no quarterbacks in Indy quite yet for meetings, but the Browns have met with a few of the top defenders. So at least keeping that door open, it seems, at the second overall pick. I'm going to be paying a lot of attention to that one. I know the chat doesn't love when we talk Browns on this show, but I'm very interested to see who they take at number 2. If they get an Abdul Carter or a Mason Graham, Casey and I were talking about it this morning, that's a scary place to be, to have to play one of those great players for the next 4 to 5 years. So regardless of who their quarterback is, I don't want Joe Burrow, on his butt 4 times every time we play the Browns because they have Abdul Carter or Mason Graham. So I'm rooting for one of the quarterbacks there at 2, but it seems like the Browns are interviewing some of those defensive studs as well.
So Andrew Berry came out yesterday, and look, I know people don't. Oh, we don't care about the Browns. The Browns are one of the biggest stories in the NFL right now as far as this offseason is concerned, just like the Bengals are. But they have the number 2 pick. They have arguably the best defensive player in football that is demanding that he wants out. But Andrew Berry doubled down yesterday, the general manager for the Browns, and said that they are not moving on from Myles Garrett. They are not trading him. He will not be traded. And I believe him.
Unmovable was the word, right?
Unmovable. So Kevin Stefanski, sorry, Adam Schefter, big Bengals fan, he was on ESPN radio in Cleveland this morning, and he said, according to his sources, he believes Andrew Berry. He believes that they're not moving on from Myles Garrett. And then I've shared this before too. It will cost them more money to move on from him. Then, like, people are like, well, look at the money you'll save and the draft picks you get. It'll be like anywhere between 40 to 60 million dead cap hit for them just for him alone. So they might as well keep him on the roster if he sits out. Oh, well, they don't have to eat that dead cap hit at that point because they could just restructure whatever they need to. So, yeah, I don't think that they're going to trade him. And it does sound like all reports are indicating that, yes, they are going to go quarterback at 2. They are not going to trade Myles Garrett. And then the one that kind of ties into something we talked about a couple weeks ago with running back, Andrew Berry does expect that Nick Chubb is going to hit the free agent market and will be playing for a new team next season. So, you guys need a running back. Obviously, that was a name that you guys threw out a while back as far as potentially looking that direction. But I thought that was interesting as well. Browns fans very upset about the idea of them moving on from a Nick Chubb.
A little bit of cut information from the Bengals front as well throughout the day yesterday. Duke Tobin said that the offensive line gets beat on, but they had a ton of injuries. We score points like nobody's business, and the offensive line is part of that offensive group. We can be a little bit better here or there, but the offense is pretty good, is what he said. That is the first time this offseason I have thought Alex Kappa might not get cut. That quote to me reads, Alex Kappa will at the very least be a depth piece on this offensive line next year. I don't know, but the first point we've heard this offseason where I think Alex Kappa might not be one of those no-brainer cuts, as we've said before. And another guy we've talked about being cut a lot, we got some more information on, or I guess lack of information on, which is still information. Duke Tobin said they still don't have any clarity on Zach Moss's neck injury. Still don't know what's going on with that neck injury.
Yeah.
And obviously, if you don't know what's going on with injuries, it's very hard to make roster decisions. So in terms of cutting Zach Moss, they would have to get that ironed out before they moved on from him. Certainly something to watch as we go through the offseason. But those cuts, we thought they were no-brainers. Seems like some of them might not be anymore.
Yeah, and the reason I asked, I think, what is today? Wednesday? I don't even know what day it is. It was either earlier in the week or last week. I'd asked you guys about what do you guys think about the Bengals, like, cap space as far as like are they going to use all of it? That was, I remember Tom being critical of the Bengals never using their full allotted cap amount. They have all this, they have these deficiencies, but yet they carry money into the season and don't spend it. And it's like, well, don't complain about some of the deficiencies you have when you're not using all of your available cap space to address some of those needs. The thing is, if you know that they're not going to use all their cap space to begin with, cutting guys just to cut guys, I guess technically doesn't make sense. Obviously, a depth piece you talk about, Kappa, are you going to be upset if they don't cut some of these pieces? They had to cut Rankins. That one I knew they had to cut Rankins. Obviously, we've already talked earlier in the week about Geno Stone when it came to that. Like, that was one maybe 2 months ago. We thought for sure he'd be a cut candidate. Obviously, bringing him back, for Al Golden and company as far as that's concerned. But if they're not going to spend all of their cap space in typical Bengals fashion to begin with, what is the point of cutting some of these guys just to cut them? If you're going to cut them to free up money to allocate elsewhere, I'm all for it. but it's not like these guys have been god awful. You just need to add some depth pieces around him to kind of balance out this roster a bit. Will you be disappointed if there's certain guys not cut that of the guys that are remaining that haven't been?
Some of them have been pretty god awful, to be fair. But yeah, I think it's more I'd be upset if they come back on their current contracts. Obviously, there's restructures that happen as well. If Alex Kappa is going to come back for a league minimum, I don't know that I'd be upset about that. There's obviously routes to bring these guys back where I'd be okay with it. But I think what you're saying there is even more of a reason to cut them, if that makes sense. So if the Bengals are going to have $10 million in cap space at week 1, and we know they aren't going to spend to that number, would you rather them have $10 million in cap space with Alex Kappa making 8 and Sam Hubbard making 9, or $10 million in cap space respending that $20+ million elsewhere and getting younger on defense, getting a different guard, maybe a lower level free agent that turns out to be great, like Trey Hendrickson was, or like Von Bell was the first time around? The Bengals have been able to operate in that bargain free agency bin and have success more often than not. I know a lot of people don't like to hear that after how bad last season's free agency run was, but more often than not in this window, they've had success in free agency. And I think if the Bengals use that money elsewhere, knowing that they're not going to get to the cap, I think getting more money is even more crucial. Because if they were just going to spend the $10 million they have left over after those guys, I would say, yeah, sure, you might as well keep them. You can still add to the team, but I'm not confident the Bengals will add to this team and not cut those guys. Yeah. So that's why I think it's crucial they move on from them.
Yeah, and rollover money is a big deal too. I mean, you can roll over money. Like we talked about it, I think it's about 25 mil. The cap space, the cap went up to about 25 mil more than what was anticipated. So when you roll over money on top of the cap increase, there's even more funds to work with moving forward. So that is something to keep an eye on there. They have options. I think that's the takeaway from yesterday. A little drama with the Tee Higgins thing at the end of the day, but overall, full steam ahead as we get prepared for the draft coming up in April and how the Bengals are going to attack improving this roster. Still a lot of drama to keep an eye on with the Tee Higgins situation. Jamar Chase, we know they're going to make him the highest paid non-quarterback in the league. But when, how close are they to getting that deal done? There was a lot of clips from yesterday. I didn't come across one. Did anyone ask him, well, when? Like, what, are you guys close? Like, did you guys come across any update as far as where they're at within that negotiation window?
They asked about the timeline for these extensions, and that's when he went on the tangent I read a little bit earlier about how important it is to have all the pieces set and know what you're working with to build a team, and getting extensions done early and how that can be beneficial to the team and the front office and the player as well. And those words make sense.
Yeah.
He's not doing a whole lot of it. So I don't know where the disconnect is, but he emphasized how important getting major extensions done early is, and we just haven't seen it yet.
Fair enough. All right, the Bearcats got a big win last night to help make Elliott's night a lot better. Of course,
that's right, baby.
We'll talk about that and what the resume continues to look like for the Bearcats as we're getting closer and closer to Selection Sunday and the quad 1, 2, 3, and 4, and what all opportunities present themselves for the Bearcats to play their way back into the bubble. Can it be done? What did the win over Baylor last night do for the outlook for the Bearcats? We'll get to all that and more when we come back. Off the bench, Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliott Rearing, and Jacob Tissett. Don't go anywhere. We're dead, he says. Or that, technically, was. Not us. But we welcome you back. Off the bench. Justin Kenner, Elliot Rearing, Jacob Tissick, Casey McCollister with you here. Casey, put Casey on the camera real quick.
Yeah,
Well,
put myself
Casey
on.
has
would
to
be
do
Casey.
that.
Would be.
Yeah,
Yep.
what's up?
No, what up, Yeet? How are you doing? Just wanted to.
Think you're so sly,
just-
huh?
I got a huge kick out of the show yesterday with him kicking it off with, a little Yeet action, nonetheless. Last night, Bearcats get a big win. Look, they were in control early in the second half, had a good lead early in the second half, and then Baylor starts making that comeback, and I'm like, oh, man, this is not going to be good for old Wes Miller and company if they are not able to hold on to this lead, let it slip away, and ultimately lose the game. But Elliot, big shots hit down the stretch. They were able to hold off the comeback from Baylor, and they get the big win on their home floor last night. I'm sure that has to make you pleased.
Makes me feel great. I mean, it makes me feel absolutely fantastic. And as this season unfolds and you deal with all that you've dealt with, so many bad losses, to finally see the team play like they should have been playing all year almost makes it more frustrating. Like I was talking with a friend last night, and I don't even celebrate these wins because this is who they should have been. You look back at the conference schedule to start. You lose to Kansas State on the road. Kansas State's terrible. You lose 70-67. You lose to Arizona at home, 72-67. That score's a little bit misleading. They were down 20 for, I would say, a decent portion of that game. And then it started happening where the offense wouldn't show up. Baylor, you score 48 points, 40 against Kansas at home. You get 2 wins against terrible teams in Colorado and Arizona State. You lose to Texas Tech. You score 50 against BYU on the road. You scored 50 at home against West Virginia in one of the worst games I've ever watched. And then it's like after that point, it was the West Virginia game that started this. The offense has been one of the best offenses in the country. They can defend well. They're playing like a tournament team. And by every metric in the known universe, they've been a tournament team over the past several weeks of basketball. You score 93 against UCF, 85 against BYU, 85 against Utah. You put up a fight against Utah State, scored 70. West Virginia, you lost that game. It was an ugly game, but it was a defensive game. You played well, I thought, for most of it. You just choked it all down the stretch. 75 against TCU, 70 against Baylor last night. The offense looks good. I know it all starts with Jizzle James. That's the X factor here. If Jizzle James scored in the early part of conference play, that this would be a bona fide tournament team. But it's not over. It's not mathematically over. Same thing with the Reds. Same thing with the Bengals. Same thing with every one of my teams. All I ask is for the opportunity, the chance. As Jacob said earlier on in this show, the position to be in position to be in a position. That's where the Bearcats sit. Do I think the Bearcats are going to make the tournament? No. I think when you give yourself zero wiggle room, it's almost impossible to make a run. You're going to have to win the next 3. I did see somebody say yesterday, I think it was the bracket guy, and all these bracket guys.
There's too many bracket
guys. One of the bracket guys last night tweeted out, you could lose to Houston
And still
get in, depending on what you do in the conference tournament, but obviously you could win the conference tournament theoretically. That's not going to happen, though. So take care of Kansas State. Take care of Oklahoma State on the road to end the year. Houston on Saturday, you just fight. You fight, and hopefully something gets done. But I don't think that they're going to be able to win that game. I just think the rebounding deficiency is just going to kill them. They're going to get out-rebounded by 45 in that game. A look at the whole schedule. Quad 4, Wes Miller.
Dog.
He's Bob Knight.
Dog.
He's Bob Knight, one of the greatest coaches. He's Wooden. He's John Wooden. He's every great coach of all time. 7-0 in Quad 4. In Quad 3, 1-0. Quad 2, 8-2.
Wow.
With 1 remaining Quad 2. And Quad 1, 1-9. 1-9 with 1 remaining. So I think that if you're a Bearcats fan and you're like, we still have a chance, you do, mathematically. By every stretch of the imagination, you have a mathematical, theoretical chance that you're gonna be playing at the end of March here. I've seen enough to where I'm not going to believe in him at this moment. Josh Reed's play has been, I think, inspiring for half the team. I really do believe that. For those who didn't know Josh Reed coming into the year, you're getting to know him now. He plays like a Mick Cronin basketball player, and I say that with the most respect I can. He plays hard. He plays physical. He's not afraid to drive to the hoop. He's not afraid to take a shot. He has confidence. He plays with swagger. I look at a guy like Dan Skillings, who I've been begging to show me something. He's lost all confidence. Whatever confidence you thought that you had in him coming into this year is all gone. You don't want him out in the court, respectfully. There's other options. There's better options that can handle the basketball, that can shoot the basketball, that can defend the basketball, and that can rebound the basketball. And that's saying something for a team that doesn't rebound the basketball very well. He's just not an option anymore. So the offense runs through Jizzle James, Day Thomas, Aziz, if he's lucky, and mostly it's going to be Dylan Mitchell as well. Like that's the Bearcats offense you have to work with. You got Lukosius back yesterday, who's okay, but I'm not going to rely on Simas Lukosius anymore. It has to be Jizzle James, the takeover show. Him and Day. They've been the two biggest offensive scorers, I would say, over this past 6-game stretch here, and they have to continue it if they want any sort of hope. I don't know how you're going to beat Houston. They've been very, very bad against Houston since Wes Miller took over, and I think they've been bad against Houston since John Brannon took over as well. I'd have to go back and look, but it hasn't been pretty. And right now, if I'm the Bearcats, I'm just playing as hard as you can, and hopefully the resume is going to speak for itself once you get to the selection time, because if you can win a couple games in the conference tournament, who knows? I know the conference tournaments don't weigh probably as much as the regular season does, but if you're going to win a couple games there, you're going to have at least a prayer. And that's all we're asking for now. As far as Wes Miller, I was thinking about this last night. I'm still pretty frustrated. Even the way they win games is ugly.
Yeah.
Like I don't have.
Last night was bizarre.
I don't have a belief that he's able to finish games. It's been a major issue down the stretch coaching. It's just in the way the team plays. They throw the ball away. It's just like they're rushing, and it's like you have to calm them down, guy. We have to play with some semblance of pace and confidence down the stretch. It just hasn't been there. Under Wes Miller. He hasn't won any quad one games, really. I think he's got 8 total quad one games and like 60 attempts as the head coach of the University of Cincinnati. You need big moments. You need to play down the stretch. Those are the two most important things, and he's not been very good at that. Last night he got a win. Good job for Wes for at least keeping the hope alive, because after that West Virginia loss, I thought this team was done. They looked dead. They didn't look inspired. They looked like they were just walking out there. They fought. And they're fighting. So I'm going to watch on Saturday. I'm going to get excited for the game on Saturday. And if they're going to win the game, then Wes Miller's going to be all the way back. But it's going to take a lot for me to be back in on Wes Miller. I just don't think he's done enough as the head coach to warrant coming back. But obviously paying him $10 million isn't an option.
You said you don't necessarily have to win Saturday to get into the tournament. What's the outcome of the Saturday game that's not a win that leaves you with the most confidence? Obviously, you could say, Houston beating us by 2, but I think there's a little bit more than goes into it than it just being a close game.
Yeah,
what do you need to see Saturday outside of just the Bearcats winning to give you some confidence maybe moving into the last few games of the season and conference tournament?
I mean, there are no moral victories right now. Unfortunately, you lose the right to a moral victory when you lose as many games as you do in the conference so early on. But if they're able to compete at least in the rebounding margin against Houston, which is what I'm most afraid of, if Aziz and Dylan Mitchell are able to rebound the ball at least at a serviceable level and we don't get killed on the glass, I'll feel a little bit better. Because that's the one thing that we've just been absolutely trash at. That and free throw shooting, obviously. But that's the one thing. And I think if you're able to keep it close, I don't want to have a giant lead and blow the lead. I don't want to be down by 20 and come back. I want it to be a good paced game, similarly to the way Iowa State was. If you can play at least similar to the way you played in Iowa State, hopefully with a little bit better rebounding, I think you'll have a shot at it. It's just going to be such a tough game to win on the road. I think Houston has one conference loss on the road this year. It's the 10th ranked Texas Tech. At home, sorry. One ranked conference loss at home. So that's all Houston has suffered this year. It's going to be brutal. But if there's any wild card type team in the Big 12 that you're like, oh, I don't know about them. What are they going to do? The Bearcats are that team. You have that skill set, that mindset to be the team that can shock anybody. I really do think so. I don't think anybody thought Baylor or UC was going to win last night. I know they were favored by 2.5, which is outrageous. They were also favored by 2, I think, in the Kansas game.
Yeah.
Like, it's the basketball betting doesn't make much sense to me. But even though they were favorites, I still didn't have confidence that they were going to win the game. Right? They were favorites against BYU last week at home. I didn't think they were going to win that game. They're able to shock some teams. So I'm going to ride with that heading into Saturday at 4:30 against Houston, and hopefully something can happen.
What would you put the percentage chance at that game on Saturday is worth watching with about 5 minutes left?
I'm going to say it's high.
Okay.
I'm going to say
Good. I think that means something.
I'm going to say the New Age Bearcats are going to at least make it a 2 to 3 score game, which is watchable down the stretch.
Good.
I don't think they get blown out on the road at Houston.
I hope you're right.
I think it's likely they get blown out, but I don't think they will get blown out.
So obviously, they're trying to fight their way back into the bubble for the NCAA tournament. If the NCAA tournament is not an option, obviously the default option always seems to be the NIT.
The crown.
No one takes pride in the NIT, but that's what I was about to refer to. There is a new tournament, a new postseason tournament that college basketball is heavily leaning into now on Fox and FS1 is where these games will be played across, but it's called the College Basketball Crown. It's a 16-team men's postseason tournament. It'll take place from March 31st to April 6th in Las Vegas. The reason I bring this up is because it is specifically tied to the Big 12, to the Big 10, and what is the other? Oh, the Big East. So 2 teams from the Big 10, 2 teams from the Big East, and 2 teams from the Big 12 will get auto bids, if you will, or into this. And then there's going to be at-large bids to fill out the remainder of the 16-team tournament. Cincinnati, obviously, you want the NCAA tournament, the NIT, whatever, this tournament, whatever. If it's not the NCAA, you don't care. But what's the chances that you see Cincinnati playing one of these 2 outside tournaments, the NIT or the Crown? And I know you probably don't care. But do you think that they'll participate in those?
100% they will. And the only reason they will is because Wes Miller needs to boost his resume somehow. I think it makes zero sense for the team to just quit after the season, after a vastly disappointing year. They're going to play as long as they can, as long as it's not in the CBI or whatever the 8th one of those tournaments is, whatever the 8th lower tier of those tournaments are, the CIT, if they still do that. I honest to God, I don't even know what tournaments they do. And as far as my interest in them playing the NIT, the Crown, I have zero. None. Negative interest. Unless Xavier's in it and we can play him in the championship. That's the only way I'd be interested in playing in one of those tournaments. But your question is, will they be playing? The answer is yes. They're going to play. They're going to play basketball as long as they can play basketball. They had a good run last year that gave us confidence in the NIT. They got all the way down to the end. Lost to who was it? It was the Sycamores. Help me out. Indiana State. Indiana State. They lost to Indiana State in a tight game. That little stretch they had in that tournament gave Bearcats fans some semblance of peace and hope and optimism. So maybe that'll happen again this year. It's just going to be a little bit different because it's vastly more disappointing this year, adding Dylan Mitchell, bringing back most of the roster, and failing at almost every level.
Yeah, those you talk about the CIT, those things are just pointless, but they continue to be a thing technically. But a lot of schools I've taught, look, a lot of those are going to be mid-major schools that have a chance to participate in those.
Sure.
And what limited funds that mid-major programs have, everyone I've spoke to, I don't know one mid-major school that'll participate in those moving forward, because what limited funds you have, that needs to go towards retaining the players or paying players to come into play when it comes to everything else. So yeah, those things are a thing in the past, but. Obviously, you have the NIT, but they're really trying to heavily push this the basketball Crown tournament in Las Vegas. But it's weird that it's tied into the Big 10, Big East, and the Big 12. No ACC, no SEC, either way. But the SEC, to be fair, Jake, they have their own tournament. It's called the It's called the NCAA tournament. The whole damn conference is going to be in at this point.
Yeah, no, we're looking at, I think it's 13 or 14 is the discussion right now on how many SEC teams are going to.
That's a record, right? Would that be a record?
It would be a record. I believe the 14 would be a record. So yeah, it's I think it's the best conference in the history of college basketball. 2025 SEC. It's been unbelievable to watch Alabama play in it night in, night out. There is 3 games left on Alabama's schedule, all 3 against teams on the 1 line. So that is going to be absolutely brutal. You go to Tennessee, then Florida at home, then to Auburn to round out your SEC regular season. Those are the other 3 teams in the top 5, excluding Alabama and Duke. So it's a hell of a conference. They're playing really, really high-level basketball. You see it really down with the bad teams as well. Even Georgia, who hasn't put together a great season, on the bubble, able to beat Florida at home yesterday. Really, any team can sneak you on their home court. I don't know what it stands at now, but there was a point a couple months ago when only one home game or one road game wasn't in the quad 1, which is just an incredible place to be as a conference this deep into the season. I'm sure it's still pretty close to something like that. It's been an unbelievable year for the conference, and with football having a down year nationally, just being talked about as SEC football taking a step back, it's been nice as a conference to see basketball take a massive step forward. Out of the 17 spring sports the SEC recognizes, they are currently ranked number 1 in 15 of them.
Yeah, how about that? SEC is really damn good. I mean, SEC is just unbelievable. Auburn has how many quad 1 wins? Like 25. So
I think 11, and Bama has 10.
It's truly something awesome to watch. So good for the SEC.
Auburn has 13.
Yeah, I know, that's what I'm saying, dude.
13.
It's SEC, man. Good for them. By the way, the SEC, to speak how good that conference is, I think the whole conference as a whole, I think they're 500, right?
They are.
500.
They just got back to 500 last night.
Yeah. So
I expected more.
Yeah.
I expected
Yeah.
more of them. I mean, 500 is just 500. I mean, I expected them to have a winning record against one another more than anything else. But
They should give one game. They should just give both teams a win.
That's right.
So
should.
So this conference has a winning record. Only conference in the country. Only conference in the country with a winning record.
All right, good stuff. This has been Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers here on a Wednesday. But you did have a cherry on top, correct, Elliot? Are we doing that now or at the end of the YouTube?
We can do it for the YouTube. We can do it for the YouTube side.
Fair enough. All right, that wraps it up on radio. Until tomorrow, this has been Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. All right, we're back on the YouTube side. Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, Off the Bench. Jake, you just said it, but the Jair Alexander on the trade block.
Yes.
Mackets have had trade conversations involving him. He's still just 28 years old, 2-time Pro Bowler, considered to be the most decorated cornerback available. Do with that what you will.
Add him to the list of all-pro Pro Bowlers that are on the trade block. It's getting pretty long for this point in the offseason. I don't think you usually have the ability to add a lot of the players like this at this point in the season for what I would assume to be a collection of mid-round picks with most of the names we're talking about. So someone's going to get a lot better. I mean, I know Jair Alexander isn't Jair Alexander anymore, but still a top corner in the league, top 15 or so corner in the league. I absolutely love. Would love him in Cincinnati, but obviously big-time trades and the Cincinnati Bengals don't exactly go together.
Khalil Herbert.
That's right.
Real quick, I know we talked about this during the show, but I just saw a long list of the NFL ownership grades real quick, just to go back to that quickly. I saw that the Jets come in dead last with the F. And that's not surprising, by the way. But the one thing that he did about a month ago that I don't think got enough attention, that I actually appreciated, that if the Haslams ever did for the team I'm a fan of, or the Browns ever did for the team you're a fan of, if he came out and said he's made a lot of mistakes and he needs to be a better owner and he's going to do everything he can to fix the mistakes that he has made. If I'm a Jets fan, you may not still love that owner, But at least to hear an owner take accountability like that, that has to be refreshing. I don't know the last time I've ever heard an owner of a bad team. And although the Bengals have been better in recent years, the Brown families, they're bad owners, right, across the board. Have they ever come out and said, yeah, we need to do better, we need to be better? No. The Haslams don't. Like, ownership just doesn't do that. So I get I'm not defending it. He has to come in dead last. I mean, there's been so many issues with just the handling of players, the personnel, everything. But I did find that refreshing to see an owner come out about a month ago and say, yeah, I have not done my job to the highest of levels. I've made mistakes, and I'm going to do my best to fix those mistakes. I actually thought that was kind of a cool thing. But, yeah, seeing him as the only owner that got an actual F, I thought that was interesting.
I think that's a great thing, and I'd love to see it more with owners across sports. But this one was forced because it was leaked that his son was controlling the roster with Madden ratings. So, I mean, I think his hand was pushed towards the table there.
I don't.
You have to address that if you're giving your 14-year-old son the ability to control the NFL team based on Madden rosters.
This is no disrespect to really any owner, but I don't buy a single word any of them say, really, for most of the time. I mean, they can just blow smoke up my ass, and I'd have no idea. So, good. I'm happy that he's willing to make a change.
We got him rolling in throughout the day. So another update on a Bengals meeting. This one, the most exciting one yet. Walter Nolan meeting with the Bengals. So that is now Mike Green, James Pierce, Walter Nolan, all three met with the Bengals. Those are the three players we talked about last week having potential character concerns going into the draft. Does not look like that has moved the Bengals off of those players. Obviously, if the interviews go poorly, maybe you add the two together and it knocks them off the board, but seems like the Bengals are at the very least interested in those players who put up pretty impressive college seasons. So it's nice to see that the Bengals are interviewing top talent, regardless of what reports are.
Yep. I have one more breaking news, not regarding that, but regarding the Cincinnati Bearcats. We just did a segment on them.
Yes.
They are. This is according to Joe Lunardi, so take it with a grain of salt. But this is the first time I've seen it on this line. They're officially in the next 4 out.
Wow.
So they joined Xavier, Boise State, and George Mason in the next 4 out camp.
What if after all this mess...
Take back what you said about
that. Would be fun. That would be fun. And also, I'm not going to say it, but we have the tiebreaker. I know they don't really do tiebreakers.
I don't think that... I don't think head-to-head is the tiebreaker.
I don't think so either. They don't do tiebreakers, but we got the tiebreaker over Xavier, so maybe that weighs something.
How many quad 1-1s does UC have?
1. Maybe 2. Maybe 1 goes into it too. Who knows?
Xavier only has 1.
That's right.
So you're okay.
That's right. Well, we need Xavier to be as good as possible, so we can count that one too. And Dayton. What about Dayton? Dayton get any better last night? Okay, good.
They played tonight.
Casey, there we go. Go Dayton, go. Casey, this happened 13 years ago today. It's one of my all-time favorite sports clips. If you've never seen professional bowling, that's fine. I guarantee you've seen this clip. It's my absolute favorite. Here's Pete Weber.
Strike to claim it. A strike to claim it. And he got it!
Number 5. Are you kidding me? That's right. Who do you think you are? I am.
That's right.
Damn it right.
Pete Weber, what a legend.
That's why he did it. He said.
That was directed at a preteen boy in the crowd who had been heckling him all day. So
that's so funny.
Not
he showed him.
Yeah. Who do you think you are?
I am.
Well, he is.
He is. Who do you think you are? I am.
He wears those sunglasses inside everywhere. Like those never come off. That's not just for when he's bowling. He wears them everywhere.
Oh yeah.
That's quite the approach.
Have you ever met Pete Weber?
Yes, a few times.
Have you really?
That's incredible.
Yeah. Come from a bowling family.
Can we get Pete Weber on the show?
How long would that segment be? I'd say, who do you think you are? He'd say, I am. We'd say, thank you for joining the show.
But yeah. But are you guys any of you bowlers? Did any of you bowl growing up?
I bowled. I was really bad at it, and I'm still really bad at it. I get real frustrated.
I bowled in college because the bar was cheap.
Okay, that makes sense. I feel like I should be really good at bowling, and I'm really not.
Yeah?
Like, every time I get out there, and I'm like, it's so easy to roll this ball down there.
You strike me as a guy who's like, oh, I feel like I could be really good at bowling, but I'm not. And we'd go play, and you'd bowl like a 270.
Maybe. I could. I think my
You have your own ball in the back of your car.
I have bowled. If I'm in the zone, I'm in the zone. My whole sporting career is based on the fact that I'm a mental small person. So, My brain doesn't handle the big moments well.
Yeah, Pete Weber's great. I've had Walter Ray on before. Bowled with him. When he stops in Dayton, he always does like a little thing or whatever where everyone comes out. But I've bowled with him.
Are you a bowler?
I can bowl, but I'm not a good bowler.
Do you have your own ball?
Like most things in life. I have a ball that is technically mine that was given to me by a buddy. But yes, technically I have my own ball.
If he has a ball, he's a good
That's the
ball.
line.
Yeah.
It's
He has
a
a ball, he's a
fingertip
good
ball
bowler.
too. Because I could tell like
Oh.
people who are serious about bowling. Do you go like all the fingers all the way in on all the holes, or are you the fingertip? I have the fingertip ball. It's all about that. You got to get a little spin on it. Get a little
Yeah, I always
spin
did the
on it.
leg kick, even though I didn't like know how to actually bowl to where I had to do the leg kick. But
Yeah.
I would force the leg kick every time because I thought it looked cool.
Okay. I
Chatterbox
like that.
bowling night. Cheese
Anytime
bar.
you want. Anytime you want.
There you go. All right, that wraps it up for us. We'll do it again tomorrow. Until tomorrow. Oh, by the way, Casey, real quick, put Casey back up on the screen, Case.
Yeah, what's up?
You
You got something for me? No.
I love that you can see Kinner in the background of the Casey shot as well, so you can see
a
what
double.
he's doing. Yeah, no, it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. I
All
like
right,
that we have
guys.
a new thing we can make fun of Casey.
Oh, wait.
for. That's
We
good.
had 2 super chats. Don't let me forget this time.
Good
Every
catch,
time
good
I
catch.
forget. Justin Edgel, $1.99. Sorry, I needed tobacco and nicotine.
What is he apologizing for?
I don't know.
You're forgiven.
Chase Wellman, sounds like the Bengals need more Mexican food in the building. Everybody loves that.
I love Mexican food. I had Chewy's last night.
Did you?
Tex-Mex, very good. Love it.
There's one.
Chewy's is actually good. I like they have these the chicken enchiladas, but like the tortillas are blue and they put the egg on the top. And oh my god, that is like that's my favorite. No
I do
free
love it.
ads, but I am pretty hungry right now. It is lunchtime,
Yeah,
so
me too.
you know, I'm gonna go yeet. You know, am I right, Casey? Am I right? Nothing.
No.
Box lunch in a bit.
Walter Nolan currently at the podium. Let me sneak this quote in since he's one of Casey and I's favorites before we get out of here. They asked him if he's going to play on the interior or move to the outside in the NFL because of his size. Walter Nolan said, ask the linemen I faced in college if they think I'm too small to play in the interior. Love that answer.
Love that.
Love that answer.
Confidence. I love it. There you
Thanks,
go.
guys. We'll see you tomorrow.
Adios.